Okay, just found this channel. What do I do? Or I've been here for a long time and I've seen most of the videos. What do I do? Well, that's all up to you. I leave everything up to you. It's your choice. Fully independent. Whatever you want. I'm just here to hopefully offer you some tools that is going to help you along. And I share my experiences and I share what I have found um, over 3 decades of explorations and experiences. And what I'm hoping to do is share enough information with you to either light a candle under your feet to get you moving or help you along the way in any possible way that I can. I try to make myself available at all times, and I try to answer questions or comments, emails. I try to stay pretty much onto it because I think the thing that makes me the most irritated is if I try to contact somebody with a genuine question, if I've spent some time on their with their book, or or in the past, or if I spent some time on their channel, and then I've asked a good question, and then I just never get a response, which is, I think, it's pretty commonplace with a lot of the of my experiences, at least in the past. So I try to stay on top of things. I spend my own time on this, and I want to make sure that if I'm going to do this job, then I'm going to do it right and do it well. Otherwise, there's no sense in continuing on with it. I try to put out enough interviews to try to get the word out, to popularize the channel so that people can have the access to that. And I don't have, I don't spend any time. Um, what I would say is looking at others' works and giving my views on that, because that doesn't have anything to do with me. Um, a lot of times people are maybe somewhat aligned with me according to some opinions, but I don't spend any time on that. That's not where my focus is at. My focus is in reality to get us out of our current state. I've come to a conclusion. I created the solution video to address that, and I try to support anything that has to do with that, as well as the other things that I've covered throughout the interviews that I've done in the past couple of years, and also the books that I've written in the past couple of years. And I'm going to continue on with this. I continue on working on it pretty much every day, and also supporting anybody that has questions related to that, or comments. So I try to keep up with things so that you know if there's something out there that I'm not covering, then I will cover it. So that's why I try to spend a lot of time on the questions and the comments, because it does help me as well as hoping that it'll help somebody else. Now, in the future, I want to try to focus more on where I'm headed, which is the solution. I want to try to cover that more, only because I've spent a lot of times, many decades. I followed the portals, and I followed what I call the glimpses, the glimpse state, which has got me into the alternate states of reality, or alternate realities, as well as the other dimensions. And the portals did the same thing. So I spent a lot of time on that. I had to try to figure out what was going on. And as I did that, I realized that where are my energies best suited? And they're best suited on dealing with our current situation. Now, one of the first steps that I tell people in dealing with your current situation is dealing with your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. Those are the first things that you can get in control of, and it's difficult. There is no easy way of doing it. There is no easy way of getting in control of yourself when it's gone hog wild for almost your whole life. You've been you've been told and trained to just allow things to happen, and then you react to them, and then it becomes a serious problem. And that's why a lot of people are in situations where they don't want to be, but it's only because of how they've been trained in the past and how they've reacted to everything that's going on around them. Some people will react with drug abuse, drug use, alcoholism. They turn to a lot of things in order to try to get control of their life, but none of that those outside sources just don't work. And also the other part of the situation is even if you're somebody who has somewhat control in your life, but then there's someone close in your family that is addicted to drugs or the drama or the other things, a lot of times people get sucked into it and they actually become enablers. So that's also a situation that occurs when it's not, you're not directly in the situation, but you're directly connecting yourself to that situation. And that also affects and involves people around you. And it involves the population, because once those people are begin to do things, then you react to that. And then it just kind of, it acts like a chain event, chain reaction. It just kind of goes down the line, and everybody's so accustomed to just going, okay, well, if this happens, then I'm going to do this. It's your reaction to the situation. And government is a perfect example of that, except for a lot of times the government will create the problem and then foster the situation by not solving it, but by throwing money at it. And there's reasons behind that. So we have all this stuff going on, and we're trying to get in control of ourselves. But you can't focus on all the super big pictures out there until you focus on yourself. You need to get yourself in line first, because you can't in any way affect what's outside of you until you affect what's inside of you. And I think this is probably the most difficult point of the process, is trying to get in control of yourself. It may seem simple, but it's not a simple process, because you might be at home alone most of the time, or at a job where you work alone, but then get yourself in the midst of a large group of people, or with coworkers or family, and that could easily change in the blink of an eye. You go from okay to full throttle, and it seems to be out of control, and that's where a lot of it sits, because we're allowing other people to control us, even though we don't necessarily consciously agree of it, but it's happening because we've become so accustomed to that occurring. So if somebody says this, then your first reaction is this, instead of thinking about the situation or being aware of what's going on, the manipulation. You are allowing yourself to be controlled by it. And that the only way somebody can say something to you that controls you is you giving them the permission to control you, because you're allowing it. Nobody else can control you unless you first agree to it. Even if it's manipulation or threats or anything of that nature, you still at some point have to agree to that. You could say, well, I was put in a position where I didn't have a choice. Well, you always have a choice. Now it's whether you want to make excuses or not, or what you value in that specific thing that you're being threatened with or whatever. But we always have a choice, and we have to understand that. We have to make that decision. You can say, well, I didn't have a choice. Well, yeah, you did. You really did. But you chose this. And that's very hard for people, in anybody, to accept, because we're accepting responsibility for ourselves. And that's the most difficult point of the whole training yourself. Once you begin to accept control, and once you begin to accept the responsibility, then things begin to change. Once you begin to see and control yourself, then when manipulation occurs within your life, you can see that. It becomes apparent. When it first begins, you're like, oh, I'm not buying into that again, because I know what's happening next. Because you really do know, but you just don't pay much attention to it on the regular basis, because it wasn't important to you. Now you can prepare yourself. Now that it's occurring, what am I going to do about this? I'm not going to let it drag me in, to draw me into that tractor beam of drama. Because once you're in a room surrounded with people that are all either happy or sad or whatever, it's easy for that emotion or that feeling to draw you in because it's so predominant within that space. But once you have the ability to understand, to see that it's there, then you can begin to control yourself in that situation. You're not controlling others, but you're controlling yourself, your emotions, your feelings, and your thoughts in that situation. So you can become the individual within that group of everybody's just feeding that feeling or emotion in the room. And that's why it's so predominant, because everybody's feeding it. And it could be hate, it could be anything. So you have to learn to be an independent, self-reliant individual and not rely on others for how you should feel, how you should think, or how your emotions should. If somebody says, "Well, you don't react the way you should in that situation," that's not their choice. That's your choice. You make that determination. Don't let other people tell you how you should react or how you should feel in any given situation. That doesn't work. You have to be in control. And when I say that, I really mean that. Because in order for you to be independent, you have to be in control. And then you can become self-reliant. You don't need to rely on other people. You don't. You can think for yourself and begin to think and react in the way that you choose to. And that's what we really need to work on.